Hey everyone, I need some advice, and I know this is going to sound really messed up, but I need to get it out there. So, here's the situation. My name is Mike, and I've been dating this amazing girl, Sarah, for about 3 years. Things were great in the beginning. We had that passionate kind of love, the kind that makes you think nothing could ever go wrong. We were inseparable, always doing things together, sharing our dreams and planning our future. But over the past few months, something changed. Sarah became distant, cold even. It felt like every conversation we had was forced and every touch was mechanical. I tried talking to her about it, but she brushed it off, saying she was just stressed with work. I wanted to believe her, but deep down, I felt like there was more to it. Maybe I should have tried harder, maybe I should have been more understanding, but I was hurting too. I needed to feel wanted, loved, and she just wasn't giving me that anymore. Nights turned into silent dinners, and weekends that were once filled with adventure became monotonous and lonely. I found myself longing for the spark we once had, but it seemed like Sarah had checked out of the relationship emotionally. That's when I met Jenna. She works in my office, and we clicked instantly. At first, it was just innocent flirting. We'd exchange glances during meetings, share jokes over coffee, and text each other memes late into the night. Jenna was a breath of fresh air. She made me laugh, and I found myself looking forward to going to work just to see her. She noticed things about me that Sarah had stopped noticing a long time ago, and it felt good to be seen again. One night, after a particularly rough day at work, Jenna and I decided to grab a few drinks. We talked for hours about everything and nothing, and it felt so natural, so easy. As the night wore on, our conversation became more intimate. We talked about our fears, our dreams, and our relationships. I found myself opening up to her in a way I hadn't with anyone in a long time. Before I knew it, we were back at her place, and one thing led to another. We crossed a line I never thought I would, and it was intoxicating. The way she touched me, the way she looked at me, it made me feel alive again. I knew it was wrong, but it felt so right in the moment. I thought I could keep it a secret, just a little escape from the reality of my failing relationship with Sarah. I convinced myself that I was justified, that I deserved to feel happy, even if it was just for a moment. But things never go as planned, do they? The guilt started to eat at me, and I found myself living a double life, constantly looking over my shoulder, fearing the day Sarah would find out. For a while, things went on like that. I continued seeing Jenna, and each time felt like an escape from the emotional void at home. I tried to be careful, to keep my world separate, but the stress of living a double life started to take its toll. I'd come home to Sarah, who seemed more distant than ever, and I'd feel this crushing guilt. Yet the pull towards Jenna was undeniable. One day, Sarah mentioned she had a work trip coming up. She'd be gone for a few days, and I saw it as an opportunity to spend more time with Jenna without the constant fear of being caught. Sarah packed her bags and left early in the morning, giving me a perfunctory kiss goodbye. As soon as she was out the door, I texted Jenna, arranging for her to come over that evening. That night was perfect. Jenna and I cooked dinner together, drank wine, and talked late into the night. For a moment, I allowed myself to forget the mess I was in. It felt like a glimpse into an alternate reality where Jenna and I were a real couple. We ended up in bed, and it was everything I needed: intimate, passionate, and comforting. The next morning, we were having breakfast when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sarah. "Trip got canceled. Coming home early. See you in a few hours." My heart stopped. Panic set in as I realized I had to get Jenna out and the house back to its usual state before Sarah arrived. Jenna quickly gathered her things, sensing the urgency. As she was leaving, she gave me a sad smile. "Mike, we can't keep doing this," she said. "It's not fair to anyone involved." I knew she was right, but I couldn't bring myself to make a decision right then. I scrambled to clean up, making sure there were no traces of Jenna left behind. I showered, put on fresh clothes, and tried to calm my racing heart. When Sarah walked through the door, I greeted her with a forced smile, hoping she wouldn't notice anything amiss. For a while, it seemed like I had dodged a bullet. Sarah didn't suspect a thing, and I fell back into our usual strained routine. But the guilt was gnawing at me, and I knew it was only a matter of time before everything came crashing down. A few days later, the inevitable happened. Sarah had gone to bed early, exhausted from work. I stayed up, needing some time to think. I poured myself a drink and sat on the couch, lost in my thoughts. That's when I heard a faint buzzing noise. It was my phone, which I had left on the kitchen counter. I walked over and saw a text from Jenna. "I miss you. Can we talk?" I sighed, feeling a mix of longing and dread. I quickly deleted the message, hoping to avoid any further complications. But as I turned to leave, I saw Sarah standing in the doorway, her face pale and her eyes filled with a mixture of hurt and anger. "Who was that?" she demanded. I froze, my mind racing for an excuse, but nothing came. She walked over, snatched the phone from my hand, and scrolled through my messages. Her expression changed as she read the text between Jenna and me, her face contorting with pain. "Mike, what the hell is this?" she asked, her voice trembling. I tried to explain, to make her understand, but the words sounded hollow even to me. She threw the phone down, tears streaming down her face. "I trusted you," she whispered. "How could you do this to me?" I stood there, feeling like the worst person in the world. I wanted to reach out, to hold her and tell her I was sorry, but I knew it was too late. The damage was done. Sarah stood there, shaking with anger and hurt. I could see her trying to process everything, trying to understand how the person she trusted could betray her like this. The silence between us was deafening. I felt a crushing weight on my chest, knowing I had caused this pain. "Sarah, I don't even know where to start," I stammered, but she cut me off. "How long, Mike? How long has this been going on?" Her voice was a mixture of fury and heartbreak. I looked down, unable to meet her eyes. "A few months," I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. She took a deep breath, her hands trembling. "A few months? And you didn't think once about how this would affect me? Us?" "I did, I swear I did. But things between us have been so difficult. You've been so distant. And I felt so alone," I said, trying to justify my actions, but knowing deep down it was no excuse. Her eyes narrowed and she took a step closer. "So this is my fault? Because I've been stressed with work and distant, you think that gives you the right to sleep with someone else?" "No, that's not what I meant. I know it was wrong, but I was hurting too," I pleaded, but she wasn't having any of it. "I can't believe this. I can't believe you did this to us," she said, her voice breaking. She turned and walked towards the bedroom, leaving me standing there feeling utterly helpless. I followed her, desperate to make things right. "Sarah, please. Let's talk about this. We can work through it." She spun around, her eyes blazing with anger. "Work through it? You cheated on me, Mike. You betrayed me. There's no working through this." She grabbed a suitcase from the closet and started throwing clothes into it. "Where are you going?" I asked, panic rising in my chest. "I'm leaving. I need to get out of here. I can't be around you right now," she said, her voice cold and final. "Please don't leave. Let's figure this out together," I begged. But she ignored me, zipping up the suitcase and heading for the door. As she reached the front door, she turned to look at me one last time. "I loved you, Mike. I really did. But you've destroyed everything." With that, she walked out, leaving me standing there, feeling like my world had just crumbled around me. The silence in the apartment was suffocating. I sank down onto the couch, my head in my hands. I had messed up everything. The guilt and shame were overwhelming, and I didn't know how to fix it. Over the next few days, I tried reaching out to Sarah, but she didn't respond. I called, I texted, I even went to her workplace, but she refused to see me. It was like I had become invisible to her, and it was killing me inside. The reality of my actions hit me like a ton of bricks. I had thrown away the best thing in my life for a fleeting moment of comfort and validation. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I was consumed by regret and self-loathing. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the pain in Sarah's eyes, and it tore me apart. I knew I had to do something to try and make amends, but I didn't know where to start. In the meantime, things with Jenna became strained. The guilt I felt made it impossible to be around her without thinking about the damage we had caused. She sensed it too, and eventually, she ended things between us. "This isn't what I wanted, Mike. I never wanted to be the other woman to hurt anyone," she said before walking away, leaving me alone once again. Now I'm sitting here trying to figure out how to pick up the pieces. I don't know if Sarah will ever forgive me, or if I even deserve her forgiveness, but I know I need to try. I need to face the consequences of my actions and do whatever it takes to make things right. Days turned into weeks, and the weight of my actions continued to press down on me. I hadn't heard from Sarah, and it was tearing me apart. I knew I needed to give her space, but the silence was unbearable. Each day felt like a punishment, a reminder of how badly I had messed up. One evening, after a particularly brutal day at work, I decided I couldn't just sit around and do nothing. I needed to show Sarah that I was truly sorry, that I was willing to do whatever it took to make things right. I started by writing her a letter, pouring out my heart and admitting all my faults. I told her how much I loved her and how deeply I regretted what I had done. I apologized for the pain I caused and begged for a chance to make it up to her. I knew a letter alone wouldn't be enough, so I decided to seek professional help. I booked an appointment with a therapist to start working on my issues, hoping that if Sarah saw I was serious about changing, she might consider giving me another chance. The therapist helped me understand why I had strayed and how to address the underlying problems that led to my betrayal. It was a painful process, but I knew it was necessary if I wanted to become a better person. A few days after sending the letter, I received a text from Sarah. "I got your letter. We need to talk." My heart raced as I read those words. It wasn't much, but it was a glimmer of hope. I responded immediately and we arranged to meet at a nearby coffee shop. When I arrived, I saw her sitting at a corner table staring out the window. She looked tired, her eyes puffy from what I assumed were countless nights of crying. I approached cautiously, my heart pounding in my chest. "Hey," I said softly, taking a seat across from her. "Hey," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. There was an awkward silence between us as we both struggled to find the right words. Finally, she spoke. "I read your letter, and I appreciate that you're trying to make things right, but I don't know if I can ever trust you again," she said, her voice trembling. "I understand," I said, trying to keep my own emotions in check. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I just want you to know that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn your trust back." She sighed, looking down at her hands. "Why, Mike? Why did you do it?" I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her question. "I was feeling so alone, Sarah. You were so distant, and I felt like you didn't love me anymore. It doesn't excuse what I did, but that's the truth. I was weak, and I made a terrible mistake." She nodded slowly, absorbing my words. "I was stressed with work, but I never stopped loving you. I wish you had talked to me instead of turning to someone else." "I know," I said, my voice cracking. "I should have been honest with you about how I was feeling. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I hate myself for what I did." Tears welled up in her eyes, and she quickly wiped them away. "I don't know if I can ever move past this, Mike. The betrayal cuts so deep." "I understand," I said, feeling a lump in my throat. "But if there's any chance, any small chance that we can work through this, I'm willing to do whatever it takes." She looked at me for a long moment, her eyes searching mine. "I need time, Mike. Time to think and time to heal. I can't make any promises right now." "I understand," I repeated. "Take all the time you need. You'll be here, waiting, hoping that we can find a way to rebuild what we had." We sat in silence for a while, both lost in our thoughts. Eventually, she stood up, and I followed her lead. "Goodbye, Mike," she said softly, and I watched as she walked away, feeling a mixture of hope and despair. Now I'm left waiting, hoping that with time, Sarah might find it in her heart to forgive me. I know it's a long shot, but it's a chance I'm willing to take. In the meantime, I'll continue working on myself, trying to become the man she deserves. I'll keep you posted on what happens next. The days after our coffee shop meeting were a roller coaster of emotions. I held on to the hope that Sarah might eventually forgive me, but I also knew that I had a lot of work to do on myself. I kept going to therapy, which helped me confront some uncomfortable truths about my behavior and the reasons behind it. The sessions were tough, but they were necessary for my growth. One evening, as I was coming back from a particularly grueling therapy session, I received a call from an unknown number. I hesitated for a moment before answering, my heart racing at the possibility that it could be Sarah. "Hello?" I answered, my voice tentative. "Mike? It's Sarah." Her voice was calm, but there was an underlying tension. "Sarah, hi, how are you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I've been thinking a lot," she said, ignoring my question. "Can we meet? There's something I need to talk to you about." "Of course." "Name the place and time," I replied, my heart pounding in my chest. We agreed to meet at a small park near her apartment the next afternoon. I barely slept that night, my mind racing with possibilities. The next day, I arrived early, sitting on a bench and watching the leaves rustle in the breeze, trying to calm my nerves. Sarah arrived right on time, looking as beautiful as ever, though there was a hardness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. She sat down next to me, but not too close. "Mike, I've made a decision," she began, her voice steady but firm. "I've decided to move out for a while. I need space to figure out what I want and how I feel." I felt a pang in my chest, but I nodded. "I understand, Sarah. Take all the time you need. I just want you to be okay. I've already found a place. I'll be moving out this weekend," she continued, her eyes never leaving mine. "I think it's best if we don't see each other for a while. I need to heal, and I can't do that with you around." I felt my heart shatter a little more, but I knew she was right. I respect that. "I just want you to know that I'm here if you ever want to talk or if you need anything." She nodded, looking away for a moment before meeting my eyes again. "I've also decided to start therapy. I need to work through my feelings and figure out why things went so wrong between us. I think that's a great idea." "Therapy has been helping me a lot," I said, feeling a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, this could be the start of healing for both of us. We sat in silence for a while, watching the children play on the swings and the couples walking hand in hand. It felt bittersweet, like a chapter of our lives was closing, but there was a possibility of a new one beginning. "I should go," Sarah said finally, standing up. "Thank you for understanding, Mike." I stood up too, feeling a lump in my throat. "Take care of yourself, Sarah. I'll be here, waiting, hoping for another chance." She gave me a small, sad smile before turning and walking away. I watched her until she was out of sight, feeling a mix of sorrow and determination. This wasn't the end. It was just a new beginning, and I was committed to becoming the man she deserved, even if it meant waiting a long time. Over the next few weeks, I focused on my therapy, my work, and my self-improvement. I avoided places where I might run into Sarah, giving her the space she needed. It was hard, but it was necessary. I knew that if there was any chance of us getting back together, I had to show her that I was serious about changing. Then, one day, as I was leaving my therapist's office, I got a call from Jenna. I hadn't spoken to her since she ended things, and her name flashing on my screen brought a wave of anxiety. "Hey, Jenna," I answered, trying to keep my voice neutral. "Hi, Mike. I know it's been a while, but I need to talk to you. Can we meet?" she asked, her voice sounding urgent. Sure. When and where?" I replied, feeling a knot form in my stomach. We arranged to meet at a CAF-GC the next day. I had no idea what she wanted to talk about, but I knew it couldn't be good. I spent the rest of the day and night trying to prepare myself for whatever news she had to share. The next day, I walked into the CAF-GC and saw Jenna sitting at a corner table looking anxious. I took a deep breath and approached, bracing myself for whatever was coming next. "Hey, Jenna," I said, taking a seat across from her. "What's going on?" She looked up, her eyes filled with a mix of worry and something I couldn't quite place. "Hi, Mike. Thanks for meeting me. There's something I need to tell you, and it's important." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. "What is it?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She took a deep breath, hesitating for a moment before speaking. "I'm pregnant, Mike, and it's yours." Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. I sat there, stunned, my mind racing. "Pregnant? Are you sure?" I asked, struggling to process the news. "Yes, I'm sure," she said, her voice trembling. "I've already seen a doctor and the timing matches up. I'm about 10 weeks along." I ran a hand through my hair, feeling a wave of panic wash over me. "Jenna, I don't know what to say. This is a lot to take in." She nodded, looking down at her hands. "I know it is. It's a lot for me too. But I thought you needed to know. I haven't decided what to do yet, and I need some time to think." I felt a rush of emotions, fear, guilt, confusion. "Of course, take all the time you need. We need to talk about this, figure out what we're going to do." She looked up, her eyes filled with tears. "Mike, I didn't come here to make things more complicated for you. I just thought you should know. I'm sorry for everything." I reached across the table, taking her hand in mine. "Jenna, don't apologize. We're in this together and we'll figure it out. I'm here for you, whatever you decide." We sat in silence for a few moments, both of us lost in our thoughts. Finally, she spoke again. I think I need some time alone to figure things out. I'll let you know what I decide. I nodded, understanding completely. Take all the time you need. I'm here if you need anything, okay? She gave me a small, sad smile. Thank you, Mike. I'll be in touch. With that, she stood up and left the CAF GC, leaving me sitting there, feeling overwhelmed by the weight of the situation. I sat there for a long time, trying to wrap my head around the news. A baby. Jenna was pregnant with my child. It felt surreal, like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I knew I had to face the reality of the situation, but I had no idea how to even begin. Over the next few days, I tried to focus on my therapy and work, but my mind kept drifting back to Jenna and the baby. I hadn't heard from Sarah since she moved out, and I didn't know how I could possibly tell her about this. It felt like everything was spiraling out of control. One evening, as I was sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the TV, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Jenna. Can we meet? I've made a decision. My heart raced as I read the message. I quickly replied, and we arranged to meet at the same CAF GC the next day. I barely slept that night, my mind racing with possibilities. When I arrived at the CAF GC, Jenna was already there, looking anxious. I took a seat across from her, bracing myself for whatever she was about to say. Hi, Jenna. How are you? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. I've been better, she admitted, her eyes meeting mine, but I've made a decision about the baby. I nodded, feeling a mixture of fear and relief. Okay, what have you decided? She took a deep breath. I've decided to keep the baby. I want to be a mother, and I believe I can do this, but I need to know if you're going to be involved or not. Her words hit me hard. I knew this was a life-changing decision, and I needed to be honest with her. Jenna, I want to be there for you and the baby. I know I've made a lot of mistakes, but I want to do the right thing. I'll support you in any way I can. She looked relieved, a small smile forming on her lips. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. I know this isn't easy for either of us, but we'll get through it. We talked for a while longer, discussing the logistics of what the future might look like. It was a daunting conversation, but I felt a sense of resolve. I knew I had to step up and take responsibility for my actions. As I left the CAF GC, I felt a mix of emotions, fear, guilt, but also a glimmer of hope. I had a long road ahead of me, but I was determined to face it head-on. I knew I needed to talk to Sarah, to be honest with her about everything. It was going to be one of the hardest conversations of my life, but it was necessary. The days following my conversation with Jenna were filled with anxiety and dread. I knew I needed to tell Sarah about the baby, but I had no idea how to approach the topic. I felt like I was constantly walking on eggshells, waiting for the right moment, though I knew there was no such thing as the right moment for this kind of news. I spent hours rehearsing what I would say, imagining every possible reaction she might have. I knew this was going to be the most difficult conversation I'd ever have, but it was a conversation that had to happen. One evening, I finally gathered the courage to call Sarah. Hey, Sarah, it's Mike. Can we meet? There's something important I need to talk to you about, I said, my voice shaking slightly. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. All right, Mike. Let's meet tomorrow at the park, the same place we met last time, she replied, her tone wary. The next day, I arrived at the park early, my heart pounding in my chest. I paced back and forth, trying to calm my nerves. When I saw Sarah approaching, I felt a wave of nausea. She looked as beautiful as ever, but there was a hardness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Hi, Mike, she said, taking a seat on the bench. Hi, Sarah. Thanks for meeting me, I replied, sitting down next to her but keeping a respectful distance. What's this about? She asked, cutting straight to the point. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. There's no easy way to say this, so I'm just going to be honest. Jenna is pregnant, and it's mine. Sarah's face went pale, and for a moment she looked like she might be sick. She stared at me in shock, her eyes wide with disbelief. You're kidding, right? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I wish I were, but it's true. She's about 10 weeks along, I said, feeling the guilt wash over me again. She stood up abruptly, taking a few steps away from me. I can't believe this. I thought I had heard it all, but this VJ Lee, this is too much, Mike, she said, her voice shaking. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make things right, I pleaded, feeling desperate. She turned to face me, her eyes filled with a mixture of anger and sadness. Make things right? How can you possibly make this right? You've ruined everything. We're done, Mike. There's no coming back from this, she said, her voice breaking. Please, Sarah, I know I've messed up, but I love you. I'll do anything to fix this, I said, my heart breaking. You should have thought about that before you cheated on me and got another woman pregnant, she spat, tears streaming down her face. I need to get out of here. She turned and walked away, leaving me standing there, feeling utterly defeated. I watched her go, knowing that I had lost her for good this time. The reality of my actions hit me harder than ever, and I felt a crushing sense of regret. Over the next few days, I tried to focus on my therapy and preparing for the baby, but everything felt like a blur. The news about Jenna's pregnancy had spread through the office, and I felt the judgmental glances from my colleagues. I tried to ignore it, but it was impossible to escape the consequences of my actions. One afternoon, as I was sitting at my desk, my phone buzzed with a message from Jenna. Doctor's appointment tomorrow at 10 a.m. Can you come? I replied immediately, assuring her that I'd be there. The next morning, I met Jenna at the clinic, feeling a mix of anxiety and anticipation. We sat in the waiting room, the silence between us heavy with unspoken emotions. When the nurse called Jenna's name, we followed her into the examination room. The doctor greeted us warmly and began the ultrasound. I watched the screen, mesmerized by the tiny, flickering heartbeat. It was a surreal moment, seeing the life that we had created. After the appointment, Jenna and I went to a nearby CAF GC to talk. I'm glad you came, Mike, she said, stirring her coffee absent-mindedly. I wouldn't miss it for anything. How are you feeling? I asked, genuinely concerned. I'm scared, but also excited. This baby is going to change everything, she said, looking at me with a mixture of hope and fear. I know, and I'm here for you, Jenna. I want to be a part of this baby's life, I said, feeling a sense of determination. We spent the next hour discussing our plans for the future, how we would co-parent, and what our roles would be. It was a difficult conversation, but also a necessary one. I knew I had a long road ahead of me, but I was committed to being there for Jenna and our baby. Later that evening, as I sat alone in my apartment, I reflected on everything that had happened. My relationship with Sarah was over, and I had to come to terms with that. But I also had a new responsibility, a child on the way, and I needed to step up and be the father that child deserved. I knew there would be more challenges ahead, but I was ready to face them. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of emotions and adjustments. I tried to stay focused on work and my therapy sessions, but the reality of my situation was never far from my mind. I kept in regular contact with Jenna, attending doctor's appointments and making plans for the baby. Despite the circumstances, we were determined to create a stable and supportive environment for our child. One afternoon, I received an unexpected call from Sarah. My heart skipped a beat when I saw her name flash on my screen. I quickly answered, hoping for the best but fearing the worst. Hey, Sarah, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Hey, Mike, can we meet? I think we need to talk, she replied, her tone neutral but serious. Of course. When and where? I asked, feeling a mix of anxiety and anticipation. We agreed to meet at the same park where we'd had our last conversation. As I walked there, my mind raced with possibilities. Was she ready to forgive me? Or was this just another step towards closure? When I arrived, Sarah was already there, sitting on the same bench. She looked up as I approached, and I could see a mixture of emotions in her eyes. Hi, Sarah, I said, taking a seat next to her. Hi, Mike. Thanks for coming, she replied, her voice steady. We sat in silence for a moment, both of us unsure how to start. Finally, she spoke. I've been doing a lot of thinking and a lot of soul-searching, she began, looking out at the park. I've started therapy, and it's helped me understand a lot about myself and about us. I'm glad to hear that. Therapy has been helping me too, I said, hoping to find some common ground. She nodded, taking a deep breath. Mike, I loved you so much, and when I found out about Jenna and the baby, it shattered me. But I also realized that we both made mistakes. I was distant, and I wasn't there for you the way I should have been. Sarah, it wasn't your fault. I should have communicated better. I should have been honest with you about how I was feeling, I said, my voice filled with regret. Maybe. But the fact is, We both contributed to the breakdown of our relationship, she said, turning to face me. I'm not saying this to make excuses for what you did. It was wrong, and it hurt me deeply. But I also realized that holding on to this anger isn't helping me heal. I felt a glimmer of hope. What are you saying, Sarah? I'm saying that I need to let go of the past. I need to move on. And I think you do too. We both need to focus on healing and on becoming better versions of ourselves, she said. Her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and determination. I nodded, feeling a lump in my throat. I understand. I want you to know that I'm committed to being a better person. For myself, for Jenna, and for the baby. She smiled faintly. I believe you, Mike. And I hope you find happiness. I really do. Thank you, Sarah. That means a lot, I said, my heart heavy but grateful for her words. We sat in silence for a while, watching the world go by. It was a bittersweet moment, filled with a sense of closure, but also a hint of hope for the future. As we said our goodbyes, I felt a strange sense of peace. Sarah and I were parting ways, but it was on better terms. There was no more anger, no more blame, just acceptance, and a mutual wish for each other's happiness. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into preparing for the baby. Jenna and I attended parenting classes, set up a nursery, and discussed our plans for co-parenting. We were determined to provide a loving and stable environment for our child, even if we weren't together romantically. One evening, as I was assembling a crib in what would soon be the baby's room, my phone buzzed with a message from Sarah. Just wanted to let you know I'm moving to a new apartment. It's a fresh start for me. I hope things are going well with you. I smiled, feeling genuinely happy for her. I replied, wishing her the best and thanking her for the update. It felt good to know that we were both moving forward, healing in our own ways. A few days later, Jenna called me with an urgent tone in her voice. Mike, I think it's time. My contractions are getting stronger. Can you come over? My heart raced as I grabbed my keys and rushed to her apartment. When I arrived, Jenna was ready to go, her face a mixture of pain and determination. We quickly got into the car and headed to the hospital. The hours that followed were intense and emotional. I stayed by Jenna's side, holding her hand and offering words of encouragement. Seeing her strength and bravery during labor filled me with awe and admiration. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, our baby was born. The doctor placed the tiny, crying bundle in Jenna's arms, and I felt an overwhelming surge of love and protectiveness. Tears streamed down my face as I looked at our child, realizing that my life had changed forever in the best possible way. Jenna and I named our daughter Emily. Holding her for the first time, I promised myself that I would do everything in my power to be a good father, to provide her with all the love and support she needed. As I sat there, cradling Emily in my arms, I thought about everything that had happened, the mistakes, the heartbreak, the lessons learned. I knew I couldn't change the past, but I could shape the future, and that's exactly what I intended to do. Life with Emily brought a whirlwind of emotions and changes. Sleepless nights, endless diaper changes, and the constant worry that comes with being a new parent were balanced by the sheer joy of watching her grow and discover the world around her. Jenna and I settled into a routine, co-parenting and working together to give Emily the best possible start in life. One afternoon, a few weeks after Emily's birth, I received an unexpected call from my therapist, Dr. Wilson. Mike, I've been thinking about our sessions, and I'd like to suggest something that might help you move forward, she said. What is it? I asked, curious and a bit apprehensive. I think it would be beneficial for you to attend a support group for people who have experienced infidelity in their relationships, she explained. It might help you gain new perspectives and continue your journey of self-improvement. I mulled over her suggestion for a few days before deciding to give it a try. I found a local support group and attended my first meeting, feeling a mix of nervousness and curiosity. The group was small, with people from various walks of life, each sharing their stories of heartbreak and healing. Listening to others helped me understand that I wasn't alone in my struggles. I shared my story too, feeling a sense of relief as I spoke about my mistakes and the lessons I was learning. It was a humbling experience, but also incredibly freeing. One evening, after a particularly intense support group meeting, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. As I strolled through the quiet streets, I thought about how far I had come and how much further I still had to go. When I got home, I found Jenna sitting in the living room feeding Emily. She looked up and smiled when she saw me. "Hey, how was your meeting?" she asked. "It was good. Really good," I said, feeling a sense of peace. "I think it's helping me a lot." "I'm glad to hear that, Mike. You're doing great," she said, her eyes filled with genuine warmth. We settled into our usual routine, but something felt different. There was a new sense of understanding and mutual respect between us. We were no longer just co-parents. We were partners in raising Emily and supporting each other through this journey. One weekend, I decided to take Emily to the park for the first time. Jenna needed some rest, so I bundled Emily up and headed out. The park was bustling with families, kids playing on the playground and couples walking hand in hand. As I pushed Emily's stroller along the path, I felt a sense of pride and joy. Watching her wide-eyed wonder at the world around her reminded me of what truly mattered. I sat on a bench, holding her in my arms and feeling grateful for this second chance at life. Just then, I spotted Sarah walking in the distance. She was with a group of friends, laughing and enjoying herself. Our eyes met, and she smiled, walking over to where I was sitting. "Hey, Mike," she said, glancing at Emily with a warm smile. "She's beautiful. Thanks, Sarah." "This is Emily?" I said, feeling a mix of emotions. "She looks just like you," Sarah said, her voice soft. We sat in silence for a moment, watching Emily wiggle and coo in my arms. Finally, Sarah spoke again. "I'm happy for you, Mike. It looks like you're doing well." "I am. It's been a journey, but I'm getting there," I said, looking into her eyes. "How about you?" "I'm doing well, too. The new apartment, therapy, it's all helping. I've been able to move on and find peace," she said, her eyes filled with sincerity. "I'm really glad to hear that, Sarah," I said, feeling a sense of closure. She nodded, standing up. "Take care of yourself, Mike, and take care of Emily. She's lucky to have you." "Thanks, Sarah. You take care too," I replied, watching as she walked away. As I sat there, holding Emily and reflecting on my conversation with Sarah, I realized that I had finally found a sense of peace. The past couldn't be changed, but the future was still unwritten. I was determined to make the most of it, for myself, for Jenna, and most importantly for Emily. Returning home that evening, I found Jenna awake and waiting for us. "How was the park?" she asked, smiling as she took Emily from my arms. "It was great." "I ran into Sarah, actually," I said, watching Jenna's reaction. "Oh? How did that go?" she asked, her tone curious but supportive. "It was good. We had a nice talk." "I think we've both found some closure," I said, feeling a sense of relief. "I'm glad to hear that, Mike. You deserve it," she said, her eyes warm. We spent the rest of the evening together, talking and planning for the future. I felt a renewed sense of purpose and commitment. I knew there would still be challenges ahead, but I was ready to face them head-on. Life with Emily was a beautiful chaos, sleepless nights, first smiles, and the joy of watching her grow. Jenna and I continued to co-parent harmoniously, finding a balance that worked for us and our daughter. One evening, after putting Emily to bed, Jenna and I sat on the couch enjoying a rare moment of quiet. We had settled into a comfortable routine, and our relationship had become one of mutual respect and understanding. We were both committed to providing the best life possible for Emily. "Mike, I've been thinking," Jenna began, breaking the silence. "We've come a long way, and I think it's time we had a serious conversation about our future." I looked at her, sensing the seriousness in her tone. "What do you mean?" "I mean, we've been doing great as co-parents, but we need to figure out what this means for us." "Are we just going to be co-parents, or is there something more?" she asked, her eyes searching mine. I took a deep breath, considering her words. "Jenna, I care about you a lot, and I appreciate everything we built together for Emily. But I think we need to be honest with ourselves. I love being your partner in raising our daughter, but I don't think we should force a romantic relationship if it's not there." She nodded slowly, a thoughtful expression on her face. "I agree. We've built something strong and stable, and that's what matters most for Emily. But I think it's important for us to keep our options open and not rush into anything." "Exactly. We should focus on being the best parents we can be and see where life takes us," I said, feeling a sense of relief that we were on the same page. As the months passed, our lives settled into a new normal. I continued my therapy, finding more clarity and peace with each session. I also remained active in the support group, sharing my experiences and learning from others. The sense of community and understanding was invaluable. One day I received a call from Sarah. It had been a while since we last spoke, and hearing her voice brought a mix of emotions. "Hey, Mike. I hope I'm not interrupting anything," she said, her tone warm. "Not at all, Sarah. It's good to hear from you." "How are you?" I asked, genuinely curious. "I'm doing well, thanks. I wanted to reach out because I heard about a job opening at my company that I think you'd be perfect for. I know you're happy where you are, but I thought it might be worth considering," she explained. I was taken aback by her thoughtfulness. "Thank you, Sarah. That means a lot. You'll definitely look into it." We chatted for a while longer, catching up on life. It felt good to talk to her, knowing that we had both moved on and found our own paths to healing. Later that evening, I discussed the job opportunity with Jenna. She was supportive and encouraged me to explore it. "It could be a great chance for you, Mike. And it's nice to see that you and Sarah are in a good place now," she said. With Jenna's encouragement, I applied for the job and, to my surprise, was offered the position. It was a significant step up in my career, and I was excited about the new challenges it would bring. As I settled into my new role, I found a renewed sense of purpose. I was doing something I loved, surrounded by supportive colleagues, and making a positive impact. My personal growth and the stability of my co-parenting relationship with Jenna provided a solid foundation for this new chapter. One evening, after a long day at work, I came home to find Jenna and Emily playing in the living room. Emily's laughter filled the air, and I couldn't help but smile at the sight. "Daddy's home!" Jenna exclaimed, lifting Emily and walking over to me. "Hey, sweetheart," I said, taking Emily into my arms and feeling a wave of love and gratitude wash over me. As we sat down for dinner, Jenna looked at me with a thoughtful expression. "Mike, I've been thinking a lot about us and our future. We've built something incredible here, and I think we should celebrate that." "I agree," I said, nodding. "We've come a long way, and I'm proud of what we've accomplished together. How about we plan a family vacation? Just the three of us. It would be a great way to spend some quality time together and create some wonderful memories," she suggested, her eyes lighting up with excitement. "That sounds like a fantastic idea, Jenna." "Let's do it," I replied, feeling a sense of anticipation and joy. We spent the next few weeks planning our trip, choosing a beautiful beach destination where we could relax and enjoy each other's company. The vacation was everything we had hoped for: sun, sand, and the pure joy of watching Emily experience the ocean for the first time. As I stood on the beach, watching Jenna and Emily play in the waves, I realized how far I had come. The mistakes of the past had taught me valuable lessons, and I had grown in ways I never thought possible. I had learned the importance of communication, honesty, and self-improvement. Most importantly, I had learned that even in the face of my worst mistakes, it was possible to find redemption and build a better future. As I watched my daughter laugh and play, I knew that everything I had been through had led me to this moment of peace and happiness. Life would always have its challenges, but I was ready to face them with the people I cared about most. I had found a new sense of purpose, and I was determined to be the best father, co-parent, and person I could be. Thank you all for listening to my story and for your support. It's been a journey, but one that has made me stronger and more resilient. I hope that sharing my experiences has helped others who might be going through similar struggles. Remember, it's never too late to make things right and to strive for a better future.